I'm David Pollay. I was in the AIESEC in the late 80s, and I've already had a chance to see so many blasts from the past. It's so great to see so many friends. So again, if this is all we do, it's just say to each other, it's great to see you. That I consider that a success. So this session is focused on executive coaching, and the intention is to give us an opportunity to think about some things that are helpful to our businesses or to just even leading our families. So we're going to do a few things, but what I always do when I work with clients right at the beginning is we always do two things. One is to get a little breathing going, and then just a little exercise, because we usually come from one meeting to the next and we don't take a breath, and so you're in another place but when you start a session. So we're going to do that, and then there's something else that we always do, and we're going to do that in a second too. So first I want everyone to stand up, which is awesome. And to the degree you can see me, I don't want to untuck your shirts, but I'm going to ask you to lift your hands above your head. And then what we're going to do is now take your hands down to your hips. And then just make a real confident pose with your chest puffed out. And what I want you to do is breathe in, big inhale. Let's hear it. And exhale. Let's do an inhale. And exhale. Now what I want you to do is I want you to give you, on the count of 3, after we do an inhale, exhale, I'm going to count out 1, 2, 3, and then high five somebody. Look at someone you're going to high five, all right? Here we go. Don't hurt them. Make sure they're looking. All right, here we go. We're going to do an inhale, exhale. Here we go. One inhale. Hold it out and exhale. 1, 2, 3. High five. All right. One more. Here we go. One more. Inhale and exhale. 1, 2, 3. High five. All right, good work. All right, have a seat, have a seat. That will do, that will do. Next thing I want you to do real quick is just to think about, over the last 30 days, one positive thing that's happened to you, positive or important thing, big or small. I want you to take 10 seconds to think of that. Big or small, something good that's happened, and you can limit it if you want just to this weekend. So far, people you've seen already. All right, that's long enough. So I want you to turn to the person next to you and share that really quickly. One positive thing that's happened to you since the last 30 days. 1, 2, 3, go. Turn to the person next to you. Say hi. 20 more seconds. 20 more seconds. 20 more seconds. Yeah, great. All right, 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, say thank you to your neighbor. Say thank you. So real quick, just to get in the flow, we're just going to go back and forth on some stuff. Why do I do that with executive clients, no matter what their level is? If they're a CEO or a chief operating officer, why would I ask someone to do that quickly? And they do that with me. I ask them, they share with me something positive or important that's happened since the last time we talked. What would you say? What was that?
Get them in the right mindset.
Get them in the right mindset. Give me like 2 more.
You're always thinking of problems.
You're always thinking about problems. You're always coming from one problem to the next. So this gets you to think about something that's good that's happened. Any others? 2's pretty good for the morning. I'll take that. So experience some joy. Yeah, right from the beginning. And you get to choose what you focus on. Here's one of the things I suggest to a lot of leaders. At the bottom of this page in your packet, you'll see it. There's a URL to an article I wrote for Forbes magazine about starting your meetings by asking people to share something within just 30 seconds, something positive or important that's happened in the last 30 days. And it's amazing what you find. And the reason why I share that with you now is, as a leader, it gets people to think about something other than what the last meeting was. It gets them focused on the meeting. It gets them focused on something that's important to them, not important to you. We got some, anyone need packets? Say hello to Charlie Pearl, ladies and gentlemen. Packets Charlie's got. And it gets people focused on sharing. And as the boss, periodically you'll learn more and more about your team members. So if you want to recognize them appropriately, you start to learn about what they care about, what's important to them. Does that make sense? All right, so that's the first couple things. Just flying through, I made a bet. I'm not going to tell you who I made it with, but I made a bet that I could actually squeeze in what I passed out in this format. And so I'm going to try to do that, but the only way I'm going to be able to do that is if you give me permission to do one thing. All right? We're going to power through this. If you have permission to do kind of turbocharge, moving fast. So we're going to go with the idea of I can go slow and go deep on things, or I'm going to go sort of high level because you guys have got so much experience in this room. I'm just going to pump out a bunch of stuff. Is that all right?
Do it. Yeah. All right.
Can I get a hey Skoll?
Hey Skoll.
All right. Chris, see, we already got that going. Chris Aarons is determined to make sure that all LCs really know that song in and maybe you can teach them all the lyrics too. So, a couple things real quick. I wanted to just share this about the parallel between AIESEC and executive coaching. When I was in AIESEC, if you guys remember, at least in the late 80s, the one phrase that I heard all the time, and we used to say whenever we'd go on marketing calls, was AIESEC was formed by 7 European nations. 7 European nations. How many people remember that is one of the lines we used to say? AIESEC was formed by 7 European nations. So I used to think that way, that these big countries, they formed this organization, it was awesome. And then there was one time I was on the national staff, I think it was my first year as Northeast Regional Vice President. I was walking through Queens, and I remember literally stopping and going, wait a second, I have it wrong. It wasn't 7 European nations that started AIESEC. It was kids, young leaders from 7 European nations that started AIESEC. And so when we think about AIESEC in the United States, it's not an organization. It's a bunch of kids like me who are running the organization. And just like we think even today, we have volunteers, Danielle and Edith, who are running the show for us. I want to give them a hand, by the way, Edith and Danielle and everyone else. Such a great job. Also, I want to call Karen Rady, who's over here, Karen Rady Thigpen, for her work in AIESEC as a past president of the alumni. Give her a hand. So 7 European nations, it's individuals. Well, that's the same thing that I learned later on about business. I used to think it's the organization, it's the big leadership, it's this going on. And then I got to a point in my career where I realized it's individuals who are running the organizations. Like when I started customer care at Yahoo, it wasn't like customer care, a big organization, it was me and 10 people. I mean, so when people think, customer service at Yahoo is whatever it was, it's just us as individuals. So executive coaching is the idea that we are as individuals, the stronger we become, the stronger we are, the better our organizations become, and the better we're able to coordinate with each other. So let me just do a quick census. How many folks have had executive coaching? Awesome, okay. So we'll noodle around and talk about executive coaching later with you. So what I wanted to do is share a couple things. Executive coaching starts with a question. You can look at it here. Everyone have a pen? I just want you, it starts with a question, and there are lots of questions, but I interviewed someone named Kelly McGonigal for the International Positive Psychology Association. How many people have heard of Kelly? She wrote a book called The Upside of Stress. It's not the stress itself.
I've seen people reading it on the subway.
On the subway. It's not that stress itself is a problem. It's what you think about stress that's your problem. And that's what ultimately, if you interpret stress to be bad for you, it will be bad for you physically. They've shown studies that way. So I want you to look at that question. I'm going to give you a minute. I'll turn on some music for a second. To look at this question here. What are you planning to do by the end of this year that will call on your greatest strengths for something important to you that will cause you to rally in the face of stress? Just think of one thing that you've already planned or something that you could reach for by the end of the year that will be meaningful to you. And I want you to write that down on your presentation there. And then I'm going to have a couple people share. But so, all right, everyone got that? I want you to get into this and think of something that would be important to you, and if you achieved it, it would be meaningful. All right, 1, 2, 3, go right. Seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, everybody pop up in your chairs, stand up. I want you to turn to one of your AIESEC neighbors and share what you wrote down. Count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Turn to somebody you haven't talked to. Good stuff. So we're moving along real fast. Let me just ask you real quick, what anyone just want to reflect on or share what either they came up with or what they heard or what their experience was focusing on a question like that? And this isn't the time to be shy. We're all like leaders in AIESEC, right? Yeah, good.
We all have things that, give us stress and tension. And just listening to Andrew, it's great to see how each of us spends a good portion of our time as leaders reflecting on those challenges and how we can work through them.
That's awesome. Did everybody hear that? That's great. Also, give Andrew a hand. He is our past president of AIESEC Alumni International. Thank you. Thank you, buddy. That's awesome. Yeah.
So often I find that we do things that we have to do, and this question it comes at what are important to us. So I think that's something that's so easy to forget.
Yeah.
And in my case, since my AIESEC days, I was missing the whole cultural, embrace diversity part. And now a project I want to work on is to help bridge that cultural divide in companies, in multicultural teams, but also for individuals who travel to a very different country to help them get a better experience.
Wow, that's awesome. Did everyone hear that? Bridging multicultural divides and bringing that was awesome. Okay, good stuff. Did I see another hand? I see actually lots of hands, but did I see one raised? Yeah, Chris.
I think all three of us kind of had that focus in a little bit, try to figure out we're all in different things and try to focus in.
Yeah. All right. So focus. So the question helped focus a bit. One of the reasons why I wanted to put that question up there is we're here to have fun and enjoy. But when I've looked at my life and a timeline, let me suggest this to you if you haven't done this before. Get a piece of paper before the weekend's out. Make a line from birth to where we are today, and look at and write down your high points and your low points. And write and connect the top. This is what we'll do with executives when we start off, and to say what connects the high points, what sustained them, and what are some of the low points, and what was it that got us out of that. But the idea of a focused question can really get us centered on something that's important to us. So my point is this weekend is think about that question that you have, and these are the best people to partner with in the world. Us, people we have so much in common with. We have the grounding of our values systems. So this is a place to take that question and make it real. Does that make sense? Okay, everybody up for that? All right, so I may come up to you and ask you what your answer to that question was. All right, good. So here's what we're going to do. What I thought of when I was talking to Edith and talking to Danielle when they asked me to do a session was what are some of the things that the top leaders that I work with have in common? So I wanted to leave you with this. This is something that you can grab me anytime. I have resources I'm happy to share with you guys on every one of these subjects. But there are 21 things that I found particularly resonate with most executives and the ones who are doing well and successful. I won't read them all, but it's in your packet. So if you have your packet, you're going to need your packet if you don't have one. Yeah, all right, there you go. So what I did this morning was I wanted to focus on some of the things that either are missed opportunities for executives or that get them tripped up. And so the first thing is the missed opportunity for a lot of executives is to lead with their strengths. They get so caught up on fixing their weaknesses and the things that they're not as good at that they don't really turbocharge and really invest in what they do best. So what I want you to do is there's research, I won't read it. This is where I'm talking about power. My background is in positive psychology, so everything that I do is research-based. So I have research citations, but I'm not going to take the time to read through them because I want to power through, right? Do I have permission to move through? Yes. Okay, so it's in your packet, but and then I have all these citations if you'd like them. But the bottom line is that when you use your strengths, you perform better, you're happier, you're more successful. When you bring it out in the people you work with, things are really very powerful. Oops, hold on. So here's what I want you to do. There's a sheet of paper. We're going to do the fastest strengths-based exercise. This is something that happens in like a whole day session. We're going to do it in 5 minutes. This sheet says 24 strengths. This is based on a survey called the Values in Action Survey, VIA, and something that I work with executive clients on. And I can get you a free access to the survey itself. You'll learn about your natural strengths. You can have your kids take it if you want to. But what I'm going to have you do right now, you need a sheet? Yeah. Oh, look at that. See the great AIESEC coordination. We need more packets in the back. We have some more. Anyone else need a packet? So here's what I want you to do while we're passing that out, is look at that sheet, and we're going to do sort of unscientific, but but it works at face value. Look at those 24 strengths and choose your top 5 if you want, top 3, but I want you to come up with one that resonates with you, that you go, that's me. That if I had to own up to one of those, that's me. For example, my number 1 strength is gratitude. I start every morning with saying thanks and so forth. It's just sort of what I'm about. So look for yours. You have a minute to find it. Who needs a packet? Anybody? Oh, yeah. Hey, how are you? Need a... Oh, extra. Thank you. Another one? Just one? So again, you're just looking for one and then circle it. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I just want you to choose one just for the purpose of this exercise. And I'm going to teach you this so that you can do this with your teams that you lead. It's a really powerful exercise once you get going. Hi, Kathy. How you doing? All right, how many, let me see, show of hands if you've got one. Pretty close. Choose 2 if you have 1. Choose 3 if you have 2. Choose 4 if you... All right. All right, so here we go. On the count of 3, I want you just to turn to someone that you haven't talked to. Just quickly tell them what your strength is. 1, 2, 3. Turn, go. You got to choose something. All right, I'm going to interrupt. Let me ask you a quick question. A real quick question. Stay where you are. Stay with your partner. Stay with your partner. Real quick. I'm interrupting real quick. I know, isn't that funny? I feel like I'm interrupting. All right. So here's what I want you to do real quick. On this form in your packet, there is it's called the ADAPT model of strengths development. I did my research thesis on this in graduate school. And what I want you to do really quickly, this is really expedited, is just talk through quickly, and I'm going to interrupt you, you're not going to be able to get the whole thing done. But I want you to quickly, with your partner who you just started to talk to, answer these questions. So when you think of your strength, if the first one is awareness, what's an example of how I use this strength on a day-to-day basis? What I told you mine is gratitude. So for me, I start my day saying thanks for everything that's important to me. How many, by the way, looked out their window and saw big smiley faces on a building next to them? You see that? I was like, cool, I took a picture of that. What a crazy way to start the day. So I go out I open the curtains. I write about this in my second book to say what I'm grateful for. I open the curtains and giant smiley faces are on the side of a building. So anyway, that's how I start my day. Think of it, tell a personal story where you use this strength was key to my success, is just to think about where you used that strength in some way in your past that was really meaningful. So for me, when I was at Yahoo, recognition was a very big part of what I did in helping inspire the people that we worked with in customer service in particular. A very big part of making customer care more interesting than for some of the folks that thought at first customer service was the low rung on the totem pole, but they really learned really later that it was really a powerful place to be in the organization. So anyway, so there's a story that I can tell there. Development, how can I further develop this strength? How can you use gratitude further in the organization? How can I use this strength to increase my individual performance even more? Going back to the question of focus on what you do well. Partnership, who can you partner with every day? And team integration, how can you bring this to your team? So the exercise can go over hours, but we're doing it in 3 minutes. So I want you to share as much of what you can quickly just to get the blood flow, because what I want you to do is go back to your teams, to your organizations, to your families, and finish this exercise. But I want you to get started now. 1, 2, 3, go. Go, go, go. Answer these questions. Quick reflections. What was that like for you? What did you experience? What did it bring forward? And don't go all at once.
Well, I think it's tough, Dave, to the partnership one is the one I got hung up on, because you think about these are your personal strengths, and how can you expand your personal strengths by partnering with other people?
Yeah.
When you think it's really an individual journey.
Yeah.
So.
That's a good question. I have a quick answer or a quick thought. Yes, more. That's a good one. Another thought. What was it like? What was it like for you to focus on your strengths?
I think it's a very positive experience, right? It feels good to be talking about what we do well and how can I use that to move forward further.
And how do you use it, right? How do you use it go forward? Because so often we're caught up in the stuff we should do and what we're about and what people tell us that we should be working on, and we forget to say, what's our core, where's our core strength? And we know it in our heart, in our gut, that we're really good at that. And that if we could find a way to release it in our work and still accomplish the other objectives that we're responsible for, we're going to be happier, we'll be more successful as a result. That's great. So real quick, there's one thing that I recommend. I talk about it in my second book, The 3 Promises. It's called a promise partner. Someone that you talk to every single day, and I have one, and I rotate out like every month or every 2 months to have someone new that I partner with. But we work on something that we're going to commit to for the month to develop. So in terms of strengths development, I'll work with a partner and say, this month I'm going to focus on how I can bring in gratitude further into my practices because I've let it slip a little bit. So every day I'm going to send you a text before 9 a.m. and give you a quick update on what I did. And I want you in turn to share with me what you're working on and that you can share with me before 9 a.m. And I'll encourage you, I'll hold you accountable, and we do that every day. Does anyone do that? Put your hands in the air if you'd be willing to try it at some point. This is something to think about. It's really, you can start with family, you can start with a friend, you can start with a colleague, someone you want to get to know better. It's a great way to really get to know people better and doing something that's really unique, and you learn more about yourself. So that's where they take a personal and you can turn it into a business arrangement. Okay, great. So let's fly. Next thing, if you don't get the next thing, my experience is you will not be happy in your life. You cannot be happy. You absolutely cannot be happy if you don't do the next thing well. And you won't be successful in your business long term and sustainably if you can't get the next thing. And that is triumphing over negativity. This is an area where I've spent a lot of time on, and I won't go into a lot, but we're going to hit it high and hard. Triumph over negativity. The research is unbelievable. If you get hooked on the negative things that happen to you, the little things that aren't that important on a daily basis, the annoyances and hassles and so forth, that has a negative effect on your health, your happiness, and also on your ability to lead effectively, because you're constantly being dragged into stuff that's not important. It sucks your energy. And then on the positive side, if you can get positive emotion, and that's not a positive attitude where it's just smiley faces, but if you can get interested, enthusiastic, creative, open-minded, these types of strengths, that you find yourself a much better leader. You can deal with a hard issue, but from a perspective of curiosity or creativity. So what we want to do is engage the positivity and not get hooked with all the negativity. Does that make sense? So there's a story that I'm not going to take the time to tell. It's called The Law of the Garbage Truck. That's probably what I'm best known for. But it's a story of me in a New York City taxi cab. And I'll just tell you this, you can find it on YouTube, but basically it's how a taxi driver responded to someone who cut us off on a street. And it was one of those things where the taxi driver was very cool. And so it's how do you focus on what's important to you. So what I want to share with you, so that's the book. The Promise, there are 2 cycles. I think there are 2 cycles in the world. I want to share it with you just as an anchor for you as you go forward. I think there are 2 cycles of energy going on at all times. There's one called the garbage cycle. And the garbage cycle is filled with rumors, gossip, self-doubt, frustration, criticism, excessive complaining, all of that stuff right in here. And then there's another cycle of energy, and that's the promise cycle, and that's where you're doing things that bring you joy, make you feel good, make you feel like you're making a contribution to other people. You're using your natural strengths. You're making a difference. So at any given point, you're either in one or the other. You're either focused in, how can I make a difference at this conference? How can I make sure to have a lot of fun? How can I make a difference in helping out and making sure things run smoothly? Or I'm over on the other side of, man, I feel old. This is, I'm not where I should be in my career. I should be doing more. I wish I did this. I wish I did that. Did you hear about how old David Pollay looked in that session? That's okay, you can say that. But it's that cycle. So you're over in this energy cycle over here, and it takes away from being strong and contributive when you're in the promise cycle. Does that make sense? So when someone invites you into a gossip conversation, just make sure you recognize you're taking a step into that cycle. So you're going to step into that energy. When you think about how I can make a difference in someone else, you're going to step over in another cycle of energy. Does that make sense? So what we want to do is be aware of these invitations to be in one or the other cycles. So what I want you just to think of real quick, is 1 or 2 or 3 triggers, professionally or personally, negative triggers, things that just set you off, that frustrate you, that just like, and think about just at work when someone says this or does that and it sets you off. I want you to write down really quickly what that trigger is. I call it the trigger example. And then what's your typical thought or behavior? What's your typical response? And then if it's a great response, move on. But if it's one that you prefer to have a different response in the future, write down what that response would be and then estimate what the impact would be in your life if you did that. Does it make sense? All right, so you got a minute. You can turn on the music, write it down. Come up with 2, 3, or 4 triggers if you can, as quickly as you can. We want to get those, manage our negativity. Count of 3, 1, 2, 3, go. Think of those triggers. One of them was probably microphones that make a lot of noise. A simple trigger is a bad driver. You got a bad driver, you're on your way to here, you're late, and someone cuts you off. And how do you react? And is that reaction a good reaction? Is it helpful? So let me hear, let's just so we get this flowing. The idea is to be able to identify as many triggers. And when I work with executives who are particularly frustrated with employees, who have different personalities, and they get upset by the way they approach things, that they get so hooked on the way an employee has a certain behavior. It's really not important, but it just trips them, and they get frustrated, and then they get off base, and then they're not as focused and strong in their leadership. So the idea is to be able to identify as many triggers as you can. So I'll take a leader through, let's go through your meetings. When do you get triggered? And they say, boom. I get triggered when he shows up late. I get triggered when she goes on, or when and so complains about this. I get triggered and say, now what's your typical behavior response? And then we'll identify those. And we'll say, now of all those, which ones are useful to you and are helpful to you, and which ones make you feel nuts and make you, disappointed or distracted, and how do you want to change that? So they'll come up with a game plan. So they'll go into their meetings and then think, here comes trigger 1, and now here's my new approach. And then they see what the difference it makes in their business. Does that make sense? So let me get like three triggers that people have written down.
I got one.
Yeah.
Somebody I do business with in the conference call, and they just go on and on and on and on, and they like to talk and like to talk, and I'm thinking, gosh, the time I have another call coming up, we can summarize this in 2 minutes, just move on, and I know that's how this person functions. So the days I'm patient, I wait, and the days I'm not patient, I say, okay, and I interrupt, I say, what's the next thing? And I know that person doesn't like that. But
Did everybody hear that? So that, someone, and how many have had that experience where you just wish someone would get to the point?
okay.
But how often do you find, and this is what Eric was saying. By the way, Eric was president of AIESEC in Belgium a couple years after us. Give him a hand for being here. And how many of, and Eric pointed to this, and this is my experience as well, how many of you think, well, I'm going to interrupt them, and I'll force them to move along, and that will make the situation much better? How many people have done that and it works? I know, trick question. How many people have done that and it really doesn't work? They're frustrated, you're frustrated, they actually will just keep coming back to the point because they want to get it out. How many can see the application of this to your relationships personally?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one. So we're gonna leave it on that. That's a good one. So I'm gonna leave it just there on triggers. And this weekend, when you're walking around and you think about the garbage cycle and the promise cycle, think about your triggers. What triggers bring you into the promise cycle? You say something nice to somebody, they say something nice to you. You go to the organizers and say what a great job they're doing. Say to an alum of the organization, Karen, say thank you for what you did before this. And where that takes you, and other things about when people say, how's it going? Well, I'm tired. Where does that conversation go? Just be aware, sort of audit your conversations and see where are they going, where are they taking you. Does that make sense? All right, so that's what, so flying through this. Next thing real quick, what I find is that most executives, then when they get this right, they have a huge impact on their employees. They say that one of the number one reasons why people leave organizations is they're really trying to get away from their manager because they just feel trapped. And so the idea is, these are two of my friends in positive psychology did research that just found a significant increase in productivity when you are focused on acknowledging people in a personal and personalized way, in a meaningful way, and knowing how to do that. there's research by the Gallup organization that says, and I worked with Gallup when I was at Yahoo, and I know the folks really well there, that the research points to needing to give recognition more or less every 7 days is sort of the time frame of feeling like you're making a contribution and people are acknowledging you for what you do well. Yes?
Sorry.
Yeah, please.
I'm just trying to get Eric's attention.
Oh, right. Oh, okay.
I was not listening to the speaker because Francesco Lentile from Canada is just telling me that he's here. He said, turn around.
I'm just trying to say my experience of you going on and on every time we meet.
That's
Because we have
perfect.
to deal with AIESEC Canada.
Yeah, there you go. That's awesome. All right, gentlemen. Well, we're gonna meet after class. We have a little international intervention. That's awesome. I got excited though when I saw the finger wave like this. For me? Wow, awesome. All right, so here's.
Every 7 days?
Yeah, and the idea is like anything like that. I used to, when I was at Yahoo, I used to train on this, and when I was at my second career at Yahoo, was director of learning and development, and people would go 7 days. Okay, I'm going to go in my planner, and I'm going to say Joe's nice on the first day, and then on the 8th day, I'm going to say it again. Now, it's not meant to, it's meant to really just be a reminder of, have you acknowledged, and think about your family. Have I acknowledged my wife in the last week? Have I acknowledged my children in the last week? Just bring it personally. Have I really acknowledged the people that are important to me? And that's what this really, and the research points to it. They're way more engaged. Because if you just think about it, human beings want to be around people who acknowledge their, your contribution. I mean, it's so simple when it comes down to it, but it's hugely powerful. Yeah, Mark.
But what do you, from my experience,
Yes.
What is the role you think that outlining for the people that are below you, their job descriptions and the measurement systems that you're going to use for their success?
Yeah.
Because I think in my experience, that has always been the challenge with my employees, is that when I had very vague job descriptions, very vague measurements, it was a non-productive
Right.
Environment. And when I put a lot of work into detailed job descriptions, detailed measurement systems, that's when productivity really started changing, and the organization changed.
So just to go right to the end, you can't really recognize effectively if you're not clear on the front end what everyone's supposed to work on and what they're meant to achieve. Did everyone hear what Mark was saying? And so I'll affirm everything that Mark said, that you want to be really clear on what the vision of the organization is, what the mission is of the organization, and then the one thing that I'd add in there that I know, because Mark and I worked together in AIESEC a decade ago.
Oh, yeah.
That one of the things that I know Mark well, this is in there too, it's not just regular goals, but purpose goals. Like why do I want to do that job? So in customer service, why do I care? I mean, yes, I have to answer email. The goal is to answer a certain number of email every day, or to answer a certain number of telephone calls. That's not inspiring. So what's the purpose? Like why am I on the planet in this role in customer service, for example? So it's doing what Mark said, is have the goals, make them clear, and then what's success? Because when we're not clear on our measurements, then it's very frustrating for the employee, because like, I did what you said and you didn't acknowledge me.
Right.
And that's true. Is that true of how many folks have children? Okay. And it's worth it if you haven't had children and you're interested, but but the idea is to make sure that the measures are really clear, because then the measures are clear on top of what the roles and what the expectations of the job is, or their role is, and so forth. But then when you get to that point, following what Mark said, is then this is where, if you give feedback, this is a methodology that I use and I suggest to all leaders to frame it in this way, is to be clear about what the values are in the organization, and then when you're able to do that, then the values of the organization, or you're able to then say, when you give someone a compliment, not just, hey, that was a good job, but it's to be able to say, in our organization, our purpose is to serve customers and make sure that they get the information they need so that they can take care of their families and healthcare, for example. And one of our values is to get to things as quickly as possible and address issues as quickly as possible. And here's what you did. and then pull out the video camera. That no one can argue with it. This is what you did. You did this, you did that, you did this, you did it on this time, and so forth. So they go, wow, they really noticed what I did. And then to go to the next part, which a lot of folks forget, I'm one of them too, is the R, the results. What were the results of what that effort happened, or what's the impact? So you actually can say to someone, this is why it matters here in our organization, this is what you did, and here's the impact of it. So someone really gets it. Does that make sense? So I want you just to take 30 seconds just to think of one person in your life that you could acknowledge professionally or personally, and think about it in this context of the VAR. All right, 1, 2, 3, go. Go, go, go. Just think of, and it can be a friend, someone here, coworker. Just think of somebody. And my challenge is for you to choose that person at sometime this weekend, or first when you get back to work, is to acknowledge this person in this way and see how it goes. How many people have? Show your hands if you have somebody that you've thought of. Somebody you thought of. Real quick, just as a census, how many are professional, and how many are said it's a professional person? How many it's personal? Awesome. Okay, very cool. All right. Good. All right, so here's what we're going to do real quick. We're going to fly through something. Yep. Yes, please.
There are some people in my life that I've come to work with who seek out to adopt this sense of recognition and acknowledgement, and it comes across as technique. They're trying to do something.
Yeah.
And it's disingenuous.
Yes.
Right? Even though they're saying the words, they've got, they're modeling something like VAR. People just roll their eyes, like, are you for real?
Yeah.
Where's this coming from?
Yeah.
Of thing. So what would be better in a situation like that? Are they better off to really just back off and not do it?
So great question. First of all, you used VAR in a sentence, so that was really cool. Turned my acronym into a word, So that was really, that was cool. Thank you. The other thing is, you hit on something that's so critical, is that it's personalization. It's getting to know. One of the things that, if we had more time, there are 4 questions that I say that if you email me, I'll get it to you. But 4 questions, and one of the questions is to ask everybody at some point in the way that they could hear it, maybe, but basically is, when things go well, how do you like to be recognized? And just to ask that question, when things go well, how do you like to be recognized? That's one. The other is, at some point, team exercise or one-on-one, tell me about a time in your life when you were recognized in a very meaningful way. And what was it? What happened? Where was it? And then you hear the way they like to be recognized. Like a quick example, I recognized someone publicly when I was at Yahoo. Every meeting, they were doing such a great job publicly. Boom, Kai did such and such, blah, 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 blah. Then next meeting, da, 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 da. She came into my cube like the 4th week and leaned into me and she said, I appreciate what you're doing, but I hate the public recognition. I don't like that. It's not it doesn't juice me up. It makes me feel very uncomfortable around my peers. And so what she liked was more autonomy and more freedom to do what she wished. So the idea is to find out how people like to be recognized and go back to personalize that recognition. So make it as personal as possible. So that's a really good point. You want to but you don't want to avoid it because you just want to figure out sort of the language. Like, how do we speak a different language? And that's the language of recognition. Does that make sense? That's a great question. My girls, like it differently. One likes it to be, all the time, like this, and the other one is more, she wants more responsibility, more opportunity, and to do stuff, in the house. Good. All right. Cool. All right. You guys all right? Good. All right. We're gonna fly real quick. Is this useful? Yes. Okay. I'm trying to think of the way I came up with this list is stuff that you can use that can be beneficial to getting more out of this conference, but what you can do with your families and as leaders yourself. So, next one real quick, create their own daily fulfillment. I'm going to give you a challenge. There's a piece of paper right here. Chris Kellum, I'm going to borrow your pack.
Please do.
Chris Kellum, ladies and gentlemen. Give her a hand. If you don't know her, she's awesome. Work together, MasterCard. It's good to see you. So the 3 promises 3-day challenge. This is what I've found working with executives. To the degree that you can control your own feeling of fulfillment, that you can create your own daily fulfillment, and it's not dependent on everybody else's behavior. you are more successful as a leader, and you're happier, and you're better able to lead. Does that make sense? Will you accept that as an idea? So what I want to just talk briefly about is that the research around fulfillment makes for people are much more successful. When they're feeling fulfilled, they're better in their relationships. And so there's research there. I wrote a book about it. And what I found is when people take this 3-day challenge, which I'm going to just get you started on, 3-day challenge, when they focus on fulfilling 3 promises each day, finding joy, making a concerted effort to do something that's joyful, and I think we're going to do that easily this weekend just by being around each other. Secondly, is doing what you love, finding a way to bring out your natural strengths. What is it that you do really well? And so your creativity, like we were talking about before, like what is it that you really want to do and focus on? And that's so how do you bring out your natural strengths and then make a difference? How do you consciously make a difference in someone else's life? So when you're here at this conference, what are you going to do? How are you going to introduce somebody to somebody else? How are you going to offer a resource to someone? Because it's not only good for the organization, for the business, but it's good for your happiness and fulfillment. Does that make sense? Yes. So the 3 research studies that I've done with business people is that when you, for 3 days, focus on fulfilling these 3 promises every day, and you have a worksheet to do it, 93% of people increase their overall fulfillment just in 3 days. So in 3 days, there's an uptick, and then you see there's a difference in each one of those categories. So what I want you to do is pull out that sheet, and I want you just really quickly to, on each one, I'm going to use Boyd's here. If we're looking at this sheet, is just to write down on what brings you joy. Just really quickly, write down 3 or 4 things that bring you joy. What are the things you like to do under the second promise? And this is going to be on the planned column, that you just brings out your natural gifts that you're really fired up about, you want to tell other people about. And then a couple ways that you can make a difference in other people's lives on the back page. Make sense? So you got to write real quick. So first is joy. Second is do what you love, which are natural strengths. And then the third is make a difference. Just get like 1 down for each. Do you have a pen? All right, 5 seconds. Just get some thought. I'm going to ask for a couple shares of something positive that gets you thinking positively during the day, brings you joy. All right, 5 seconds. Get it down. Some thoughts. 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, just get a couple. Any part of that form you want to share, but let's start with joy. What's something that just brings you joy on a daily basis?
Making my kids laugh.
Making my kids laugh. Awesome. That's like the day doesn't start till you get a good laugh. That's what a friend of mine said. Frank.
Seeing other people realize how great they are.
Oh, that's awesome. By the way, Frank Foti, president back in the late 70s. Not to say age, but he's been one of the most dedicated alums over the years. And Karen's shaking her head. So thank Frank Foti. Give him a hand. Seeing other people's greatness, making them laugh. Spending time with the dogs. Awesome. Yeah. Who likes playing with the animals? So, I was not talking about your kids or your friends, but yeah. Yeah.
Doing Pilates or exercise.
Doing Pilates or exercise. How you doing, Heidi? Pilates or exercise. For me in my household, we don't start the day without hugs. So everybody gets a hug. One daughter likes 1 hug. One daughter likes 4. So we've got underneath, up, abound, sideways, and that kind of thing. So, and the idea is we can get up really quickly. The alarm goes off. We snooze it. We get our coffee. We run out the door. We come in the office. But we don't think about what is it that we can do to create some joy, generate some joy right from the beginning of the day. Does that make sense? And when you look at your planner, look at it from this perspective. Do I have something planned that's going to use my natural strengths today? And I'm going to use something that's going to make a difference. Because if you do that, the idea is that you'll see your fulfillment go up, and as you do, your effectiveness as a leader will go up too. Make sense? All right, we're going to fly. Are you guys okay real quick? We're just going to fly real quick through the last part of this. I want to win my bet. Is that all right? You guys still have the energy?
Yep.
Yeah?
Good.
Okay. So I just want to introduce you to a couple things. I'm not going to say much about them, but what I find that top executives, remember when I asked you to do a timeline? And I said, think about where you started in your life, which is called birth, and then where you are now, and along the way, where are your high points? One of the things that I ask people to do is say, look at your high points and who was involved at that point in your life. And most of the time, you'll find there are some very key people, coaches, mentors, advisors, promise partners, organizations behind you when you're at your best. Some of your lower points oftentimes were more isolated. That's not a rule, but that's something to think about. So the idea is looking at, well, this is a quote from, although I'm an old Yahoo guy, so I don't really like quoting Google guys, but I still remember a manager of mine came into my office when I was the director of customer service at Yahoo. And he comes in and he goes, there's this new company, it's called Google, and I think they're pretty good. I go, really? Wow. He goes, yeah, I think we should keep an eye on them. And well, you know, so his thing was to have a coach. These are just, one understatement. That was like unbelievable. These are just basically, it's like 5 to 1. You invest in personal coaching and you get a 5 to 1 or a 6 to 1 return. Harvard did a study of companies that really invested in their personal development programs, professional development programs, particularly focused on coaching. They saw 17 to 35% better performance in the S&P 500 as a result. So investing in strengths, investing in your employees, investing in yourself is something that can really. The idea is that all of you, I know this without talking to everyone. Everyone is got an upward trajectory. I mean, we have bumps and ups and downs, but it's going like this. The idea of getting with a mentor, an advisor, a coach is to accelerate it, is to go faster up. So what I say is ignite performance and accelerate further and faster. Does that make sense? So here's what I just want you to do as homework later, is just to think about what are your top 3 goals, professionally and personally. And then just use this as a matrix and say, do I have a coach? Do I have someone who can really help me get there faster? How much would it cost? Is it worth the investment? Do I have advisors? Chris Aarons is awesome about getting advisors. They don't have to be paid advisors. They can be people who are just invested in something that you're doing interestingly. Chris had one. He also has had a couple companies where he has official advisors as well. Mentors. You know, Boyd Griffin was my mentor in AIESEC, which is awesome. And it's great. How many people know the name Boyd Griffin? It was PAI back in 69, 70?
1870, I think.
1870. Give Boyd Griffin an applause right here. 1870. That's probably the funniest line, yeah. 1870 was that'd be awesome. Yeah, right? Okay. He was Secretary General back then.
That's what they call it.
Yeah, okay. That's awesome. And Boyd's here, which is really cool. So mentors, and then one other one I just want to add then is circulation. What I find is to the degree you're in circulation, not necessarily that it's a mentor, advisor, or coach. I suggest you have those, but being in circulation is like being here. Some people, alums, chose not to be here, and that's okay. But by being in circulation, you're going to know what a lot of people are up to and what they're doing. We have so much in common. A lot of opportunities can come of that as a result. And so I'm going to an event at the University of Pennsylvania next week for a positive psychologist, a reunion. The same, being in circulation. When I was in circulation, dating, by saying, yeah, people say you want to go out on a date. And I said, sure, why not? That's when I met my wife, when I was open to getting out. And I wasn't closed in my apartment saying, oh, woe is me, I'm not meeting anyone. Does that make sense? Anyone have that experience when you're in circulation, good things happen? So just that's one last box there. And a question. I saw a hand go up before. Yeah,
I was
please.
just wondering, there's this concept of reverse mentoring. Have you had any good experiences with that, or any companies that have done that, implemented that, and had it go well?
I mean, a younger leader coaching. I don't personally have experience with that, although I know particularly where I've heard it really useful is when they're senior leaders, and I work with some who are like their 60s. They're not as hip to what's going on with the millennials and technology, and so reverse mentoring in that regard has been really impactful for them.
Yeah.
And have you had any experience with that?
Well, we're thinking about starting it, so that's why I was just wondering if it's something that's been successful.
It's really, I mean, really very cool. And when you think about making a difference, these younger leaders being able to influence senior executives would be really cool. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about it if you do that. Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to share my experience. So I was
Please.
assigned as the reverse
Say here just a little louder.
So I was assigned to be on a reverse mentoring program for one of our senior leaders in Thomson Reuters, and what the example that you shared, it's really the older generation, the senior leaders, they're little bit disconnected from the technology in terms of the capabilities which are out there. So they really it had really positive impact in terms of changing the strategy of the business, in terms of leveraging technology solutions to basically automate and streamline operations, as opposed to just doing what they used to do and just going with the regular planning process that they used to have in place before. So
Wow.
it's a really effective strategy.
Everybody heard that. Now, for me as a leader, I have a small organization. I have a coaching organization, so a small group. But thinking back to when I was in corporate, I would be very inspired right now to go back and figure out how I could do what you're thinking about doing. Because what a cool way to bridge the gap, a cool way to get a lot of communication going. That's a great idea. That's really cool. Yes.
Predrag, everybody. Immediate past New York hub leader.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Good. Immediate past.
There's a current hub leader, so he is the prior hub leader.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you. Well, that's great. See, look at that. We're acknowledging people, gratitude, that's good. All right, so real quick, mood recovery rituals. This is what top executives can do too. I just want to give you the exercise. Research is overwhelming. This is a picture I just had to put in of my girls. There's a, go ahead, you can applaud. Frank is applauding. Go ahead, thank you. All right. This is when they were really little. I tell a story, and I'll just, so quickly, I was having a bad day at work years and years ago. I tell this in the second book. And I was having a bad day, and I was looking down at the floor, because where do you look when you're not feeling good? Usually down at the floor. I looked down at the floor, and I saw I had stickers on my shoes. And I started laughing because I figured, my girls had slipped those stickers on my shoes without my knowing when I was leaving the house and kissed my wife goodbye that morning. And just thinking about my girls putting stickers on the shoes made me laugh. And all of a sudden, it changed my whole mood. And you ever have a situation where your mood changes to the positive, and you knew you were feeling bad before, but you can't remember why? And that's what happened. So I call that a positive trigger. So in mood recovery rituals is to have some things that you can think of or hear or smell or whatever it is, candle burning, just to be clear, or beer or whatever. But the idea is to think about what are those mood recovery rituals that you can employ. And for me, it's stickers. Now, do I literally have to put stickers on my shoes now? Some people are like, yeah, yes, you do. No, it would be helpful, but actually, just the memory now of those stickers. If when I get stressed, if you see me looking down and I come up with a big smile, it's because I've gone into a mood recovery ritual where I've looked down at my feet. It makes me think of my kids. I'm smiling even though they're 13 and 14 now. That memory triggers positive emotion, and I'm reset quickly. Does that make sense? So here's what I want you to do when you have time, and I promise it's worth the effort, is identify as many positive triggers as you can in your life, the things that when you hear, they make you smile, make you laugh, make you feel good. And then think about some of the other things that you can do that are for fun, their passions, your hobbies or interests, and ways that you can make a difference in other people's lives. So when you find yourself starting to head into, quote unquote, I'm having a bad day, you can say, I'm having a bad experience here, but I'm going to go into something that's authentic to me, that's going to be a positive trigger to bring me back. Mood recovery ritual. Does that make sense? All right, so that's that. Continuous learning practices. What I found that I wanted to share with you, I did some math. I can give you the math. I promise you, I have it right up here. That there are 18 available work weeks for you guys to focus on what's important to you, what it is you want to do. I figured out there are 8, and I published it. 18 work weeks. It's pretty interesting when it comes up. So what does that mean? That means when you look at your life and you think about what it is that you want to do, really focus on that's important to you, then what is that knowledge that you want to gain? What skills do you want to gain? What experiences? What relationships are there? If you see that little S on the end there. What knowledge, skills, experience, and relationships would you like to have even more? And how are you going to get them? And when are you going to get them? And I'm telling you, there's 18 work weeks. So if someone wants to write a book, you can write a book. You can talk to me about that. If you want to work on a new business, you've got 18 work weeks that are there. And it's not that complicated. It's using some lunch, using some dinner time, some weekend time, and so forth. Did you all get that? So if you have a dream, back to that first question in the beginning of our session, there's 18 work weeks to work on that dream. Does that make sense?
Where does 18 come from?
Some calculations that I made based on people's lives, that there are 18 work weeks based on where you can take time from nighttime, lunchtime, and so forth. Yeah, it's
free time.
Yeah, the free time that you make. So it's a very scientific process that I'll show you if you want to see the number. But take my word for it, it's available to you. Background there, to get in touch with me, we're going to do one last thing as we go. On your sheet of paper, I have a few books just for fun I'm going to sign that I brought. The Law of the Garbage Truck, The Three Promises. There's a piece of paper. If you want me to send you this PowerPoint that has more of the research and a couple other resources, on that, yeah, the little there's an index card. Yeah, the index card. Just write your name and your address, and for fun, tell me your AIESEC experience, just to trigger my old memory to how we know each other. Fill that out real quick. Put your email address in and send it in, and then we're going to do a drawing for some books. One last thing, just for fun, we're going to do it. This is an AIESEC thing. Peter, yes.
I think we have the index cards.
Index cards? No index cards? Okay, hold on real quick. Pass them to the aisle if you would. Do you have index cards back there? No. No? No index card.
Give him my card. I have the books.
Yeah, hold on. Hold on real quick. We have, you found them? Okay, we've got some index cards. No, thank you. Oh, index cards.
Is that extra?
Extra. Got it? Who else needs index cards? Index cards. Just email full name and address and email address. And then pass it to the aisle. And then we'll... Anybody else need one? And it doesn't have to be an index card. You can write it on anything or turn in a card. Cool. And then when it hits the aisle, if the folks in the aisle, when we leave, if you could just put it up in the front, that would be great. Or actually, we'll do that real quick. All right. I'm too excited. I'm going to have you do one thing just for fun. AIESEC members from all around the world have taken the Law of the Garbage Truck, you guys know, is what I'm known best for, which is around navigating negativity. Well, I've had presidents from all around AIESEC in the world have taken this pledge. And just for fun, I'm going to have you guys take the pledge with me. The pledge is focused on not accepting the negativity that we can't control from other people, the negativity we can't control from ourselves, and that we don't take that negativity and dump it on other people. Is that reasonable? So just for fun, we're going to do this pledge, which I've done with corporations all over the world, but it's really an AIESEC type thing. So you guys ready? All right, I need everybody up on their chair. On the chair? No, not on their chair, in front of their chair, sorry. Yeah. All right. I'll just get up on the chair. All right, I need everybody up. Everybody up, put your hands above your head. All right, put your hands above your head. All right, and before, then I'm going to let this real quick. Let's lean this way. Just make sure we're limber for this. We're going to lean this other way. Here we go. We're going to lean forward. We're going to lean back. Now we're going to shake those hips. All right, that's enough of that. Enough of that. That's maybe tonight. Yeah, exactly. With permission. Just before we break, I just also want to tell you, thank you so much for coming this morning, being here, for the hugs, for the high fives, for the shares, for the fun waves, for the memories, for the opportunity to work with each other going forward. I really am grateful for you guys. Yeah.
How do you like to be recognized?
How do I like to be recognized? Just, just paying attention like you did right there and acknowledging me for that way.
I'll say it, Dave.
No, that's right, exactly. No, I won't refuse, but no, I really I appreciate it when someone says, this is something that was important to me and gives me a specific example of how it was helpful. That always makes a difference to me. And you're saying that makes me feel good, so thank you. All right, so thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Yeah. Very cool. All right, so here we go. Let me see the hands here. You guys are going to repeat after me. This is a pledge that's been taken by presidents all around AIESEC, around the world. And here we go. Sorry, I got to just tell you one thing. Garbage trucks in my lexicon are when we are carrying negative energy that we dump on other people. When we take our rumors and gossips and frustrations and so forth, and we dump on other people. When we take it personally, that's when we have problems in our lives. So we want to be able to take that stuff, let the negative stuff we can't control pass by so we can focus on the important part of the relationship. So here we go. All right, those are garbage trucks. So here we go. Hands up. I do not accept garbage in my life.
I do not accept garbage in my life.
When I see garbage trucks, I do not take them personally.
I do not take them personally.
I just smile. I wave. I wish them well. And I move on. And I do not spread garbage to others. I am not a garbage truck. I am not a garbage truck. I do not accept garbage in my life. Give each other a high five. Welcome to the garbage truck, no garbage truck revolution. Thank you.
Well done.
All right. Always an ISECer. Pass those cards up front, and I'll do a quick drawing. Thank you, everybody. Hey, thanks so much for coming. Yeah.